Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how to make your first actual part in Onshape. So we're going to make a really simple like little name tag chip thing. So this is what it'll look like at the end. So I'm going to go back to the beginning. So from your main Onshape page, you're going to click Create a Document. And I'm just going to call it Chip. All right, so here is our workspace again with our 3 different planes, our X, Y, and Z. You can see them all on the little view cube too that you can rotate around. So we're going to start with creating a sketch. So I'm going to click the sketch button, and it says select a sketch plane, and it also has this part over here blue. That means you need to do that to kind of move on and do the next step. So I'm going to click the top plane. So I'm just making it orange and clicking on it. And now you can see that there's a sketch box that's on that same plane as that top plane. And I'm just going to rotate on my view cube. I'm going to click top to kind of make it viewing straight on. So I'm going to leave this sketch box open. If I click the green check mark, you exit out of sketch mode and you can't keep sketching. So you want to leave that open. If you do close it, you can just double click on sketch 1 over on the left hand side. And we're going to draw a circle. So I'm going to grab my center point circle, and I can tell I'm on that tool because it's blue. And I'm going to go right in the center. This is the origin of like our workspace, the very center of like the world that we're in. So I'm going to click once on there, and then I'm going to move my mouse out and click again. So right away, it's always going to ask you the dimensions. If you don't set the dimension now, there is a way to do it later, and I'll show you that too. But that little box there on those numbers means it's asking you like what size do you want this to be. I'm going to do 1.5. Actually, I wonder what our units are in. I want it to be 1.5 inches. So this little document menu button next to the Onshape button, you can go to Workspace Units. And I'm in inch. If yours is in millimeter or centimeter, you can change it. So if mine was in centimeter, it would probably show 3.81 instead. So if you were in a different measurement and you change it to inches, I can go back into my sketch, and you might have to double click on that number and change it to be in inches. So from there, you can click the green check mark. We're going to be done with that sketch. So we're done with this 2D shape. We're now going to make it 3D by clicking this extrude button. So extrude is how just you make things three-dimensional. You add depth to it. So I'm going to click on it once. And now it says basically like what face or sketch do you want to extrude. So I'm going to click on that circle that we drew. And if I rotate, I can see that now it's adding height to it. So instead of 1 inch, we're going to do 0.2. And if you hit enter or just kind of click off, it'll readjust. So we can add like add surfaces, remove, we'll do a little bit later. There is, instead of blind, you can do different things too. So like if you want to remove a hole through everything that it's like going through, you can do through all. You can change the direction of the extruding, so you can see that arrow flipping. Sometimes that, depending on your design and what you're doing, that'll matter. I'll just leave it at that default. Actually, I'm going to flip it so it's going away. That'll make another step a little bit easier, but if you don't, that's okay too. And I'm going to click the green check mark. So there is that beginning of our little chip. So we're going to add a little hole in it to put like on a keychain. So I'm going to do a new sketch. So I'm going to click sketch. Instead of choosing like top, front, or left plane, I can actually choose that surface of my circle that I drew. So it's yellow, I'm going to click on that. And now I can see that sketch too. I'm just going to rotate to view it from the top again. And I'm going to do another center point circle. I'm going to zoom in here. So I want it directly above that middle part of the origin. So you can see if I start where that center origin marker is and move my mouse up, there's a really faint yellow dotted line. So I'm just going to kind of go up a little ways and then click once to place the center of my circle, and then click again to place the outside. So we're gonna make this 0.325. And to set that dimension, I didn't click off of it. I didn't click the box. It was already selected. So all I had to do was type in the dimension number. And there is that circle. So depending on where you placed it, it might be really close to the edge or off of the edge. So we want to set the dimension from how far the center of our circle is to the center of our full chip. So this button right here is the dimension tool. So I can click on it. Now it's blue, so I know that's the tool I'm on. And I'm going to click on the center of that circle we just drew and the center of our origin and make this 0.5. And it gives us a good space from that edge. So if I rotate here, next we want to remove this hole through our whole chip. So instead of closing the green check mark, I can actually just click the extrude button right now, and then it knows that that sketch that I did is what I want to work with. So you don't have to click it later. Instead of adding, I'm going to remove. And so right now it's removing a full inch, which things don't go that far anyways. So you could do an inch. I know it's 0.2 in depth. You could do that. You could just do up to part. I think that might go all the way through, depending on what you're doing, or through all. That'll for sure cut all the way through. So there are different settings, and then you can kind of play with to see what it does on yours. But I'll just do through all. So now I have a hole in there. So next we're going to round our edges just to make it a little bit more finished looking and crisp. So we're going to do something called a fillet. So this is rounding the edges over. Chamfers are kind of similar, but it kind of puts it at an angle. You can kind of see the difference in those two icons. So I'm going to do a fillet. And I'm going to set this to be 0.05 is the radius on this. And then I'm just going to click on my edges here. So this edge on that little circle part, the bottom part of our little circle, the outside circle, and then the bottom of the outside circle. And you can see they're all listing here. So if you were doing this on something else and you realize, oh, nope, I don't want that edge, you can unclick it or do that little X, and that gets rid of it. But we want all four of these surfaces to be rounded. You click the green check mark to accept it, and now we have a little rounded little chip. So the last thing we're going to do is add your name on here. So we're going to do another sketch, and I'm going to put it right on the face again. I'm just going to click top so I'm nice and square, zoom in, and there is this text tool. So I'm going to click that and drag out a little box. So when I'm doing this one, I'm not going to let it snap to like an edge, because then it's going to be stuck on there and it's kind of like dimension to that point and you can't change it. So I'm going to make sure that nothing gets highlighted yellow. And click, and you're just going to do your first name and your last name. You can do it on 2 separate lines, 1 line, depending on how long your name is. Flyshacker, I would definitely have to put on its own line. And I'm going to click the check mark. You can, if you want to play with the font or bold or anything, you can do that too, but I'm going to click the green check mark. So your name is probably going to be huge, so we need to dimension it a little bit. And this is going to be a little bit different for everyone because your names are all different. So I'm going to click the dimension tool, and I can dimension the height of my line. So I just click this little line, and I can drag out to place my dimension measurement. And I'm going to try 0.2. Let's see how big that makes it. Made it a lot smaller. So now I need to shift it to get it on my actual chip. So I can also dimension from a point, or maybe I'll do the center. So the center point to the center of my chip coin, that origin, and I can make that 0 because I want it to be perfectly centered. And I can see that my name is still a little big, and maybe I need to move it up a little higher. So another thing I could dimension is that center of my name to like the bottom of my circle. And let's just try 0.15, move it up a little bit. I think I need to make my 0.2 dimension that I did at first, make that a little smaller, 0.15. There we go, that looks a lot better. So just try and get it generally centered, all on the chip, not hanging off the edge. You're gonna have to play with those dimensions a little bit, You can really dimension all kinds of things. So even this line here, I could dimension from the top of my chip. You can do all kinds of stuff. I'll just hit that. If you ever mess up, like I really don't need that dimension, Control Z or Command Z on a Mac is how you can undo. So I'm going to now extrude this. I'm going to click Extrude. And right now it's popping out a whole inch. I'm going to remove it and have it cut in just a tiny bit. I'm going to do 0.03. When I hit enter, I can see it's only cutting in. If I rotate just a tiny little bit, it's even kind of hard to see there, but I'll click the green check mark to accept it. And there is my little chip that would have your name in it. So you're going to turn in just a picture of this chip to the assignment in Schoology.